Because this talk show will last for 20 minutes.
So you will have to edit it.
Yes.
You can give us the. Can you share with us the full interview and the recording? Can you share that? Or
Yes, of course. If you want.
yeah, we'll keep it for our
I will
archives.
upload it on YouTube and send
Okay,
you the link.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ờ, anh ơi, bà rủ em cái tivi em nhìn hình cái à? Thế nào hả Hạnh? Sao đấy? Em cứ nói cho em luôn cả Q nữa.
Yeah.
Để
Or
làm
do you
luôn
want to
một
keep it in
lèo
the
vâng.
pocket? Yeah, thanks.
Tivi lên rồi ạ. Q thì chưa.
I think last time you were on leave or something. You were supposed to interview me because your colleague interviewed me saying that his colleague was not available that day, so he was doing it alone. Huh?
Miss Mai Jung was last.
Miss
Oh, she did. Okay. Thank you.
nhìn dây mic có lộ lắm không Hạnh? Không đúng không? Che đậy hết cỡ.
You're watching yourself.
Yes.
I wish I had something like that to read from.
That's our secret weapon.
You should allow the
Yeah.
interviewees to be
Everyone
having.
thinks that we can learn by heart everything, but actually we cannot.
Actually, we also need something because we give messages on TV, we record our messages, and it's much better to have it
Yes.
as a teleprompter rather than trying to remember everything.
Yes. Okay. Now I will start now. Thưa quý vị, đầu tháng 9 vừa qua, Ấn Độ đã vượt Brazil về số ca mắc bệnh COVID-19 do virus SARS-CoV-2 gây ra. Và từ đó đến nay, quốc gia này vẫn là ổ dịch COVID-19 lớn thứ hai thế giới, với số ca mắc mới lên đến hàng nghìn, thậm chí có thời điểm lên tới hàng chục nghìn người mỗi ngày. Trước hết, mời quý vị cùng đến với phần tổng hợp ngay sau đây để có cái nhìn khái quát về tình hình đại dịch COVID-19 tại Ấn Độ. Bé à? Không? Lần trước Hạnh đang hỗ trợ chị.
Is it your voice or the wire showing up? The voice.
Được chưa? Được rồi đúng không? Tiếp nha. Để có những thông tin chính thống nhất về tình hình đại dịch COVID-19 tại Ấn Độ, cũng như những nỗ lực của chính phủ Thủ tướng Narendra Modi nhằm kiểm soát dịch bệnh, chúng tôi hân hạnh có cuộc trò chuyện với ông Pranay Verma, Đại sứ Ấn Độ tại Việt Nam. First of all, thank you so much for your time with VITV channel today.
Thank you very much for inviting me today to your channel.
Yes. Ambassador, as we know, India now has the second largest number of COVID-19 cases in the world. Could you please explain with us some practical situation of COVID-19 in India right now?
Yes, so until yesterday, India had about 6.2 million positive cases since the time the COVID pandemic broke out. You have to look at this number in the right perspective, considering that India is a country of 1.3 billion people. So even smaller proportions lead to large absolute numbers. And so I think it's this 6.2 million number of infections, I think, needs to be looked at that from that perspective. So if you have 6.2 million people who are positive, we also have 5.2 million people who have recovered fully from COVID. And if you look at our current recovery rate, it's more than 83%, among the highest in the world. Our case fatality rate, which is number of people dying out of the total infected population, has come down to as much as 1.57%. The global average is 3%. If you look at the number of deaths per million population, again, India stands today at 71, which is almost half of the global average, and much lower than the other two big countries who have large number of infections, US and Brazil, whose deaths per million count is as high as more than 600. So this is the perspective in which you have to look at this large number. It's a large number, no doubt, but considering India's very, very large population, is still a very manageable small proportion. Another factor is that we are finding a number of new cases because we have scaled up our testing significantly.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, we have so far tested more than 74 million people, and today we are testing more than 1 million people every day. So these ramped up testing have also revealed a large number of cases which were asymptomatic. So this is the overall picture in terms of the statistics that you should and your viewers should understand when they hear this number, 6.2 million people. They have to also remember that 5.2 million people have fully recovered from the pandemic.
So I wonder, who is the most affected by the pandemic in your country right now?
Well, this pandemic, the virus itself does not make any distinction between rich and poor, or one region and another. But clearly, in terms of the fallout of the pandemic, the people who are marginalized, who are vulnerable sections, who are the poorer sections of the society, have got hit more in terms of the impact of the pandemic, and that is an area where we are focusing most of our attention to address those impacts. In terms of our own effort to limit the pandemic spread, we are ensuring that the infection to rural areas is limited. We do not allow the pandemic to spread to rural areas where most of our people live. Today, the situation is such that if you look at the total number of districts in India, there are about 700 plus districts in India, of which only 60 are actually contributing to large number of cases. So as we are now dealing with the pandemic, our focus is largely on those 60 districts as we are unlocking the economy, making more targeted and focused effort to limit the spread of pandemic. It is in those 60 districts that we are making that effort.
So what about the economy of India? How has the situation affected the economy and the economic activities of India?
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented for any of us who's living today. The last such widespread pandemic had occurred more than a generation ago, and none of us, most of us, did not see that. Uh, Today, its widespread impact is being felt across the world, I think without exception. And clearly, India is also not an exception. So there have been disruptions in economic production, there have been disruptions in economic consumption, and they have together made an impact on the economic situation in India. If you look at the initial steps that we took, more than 2 months long lockdown in the country, the entire country kind of came to a standstill, trying to contain the pandemic by ensuring social distancing. That had an impact on the economy. So as now we are unlocking gradually, we are seeing the revival happening. So I think probably the worst is behind us, and we are looking forward to the economy becoming more stable and revived in a positive direction. Some of the critical sectors of economy, fortunately, such as food production,
Yeah.
remain stable, which is a good thing. Our agriculture, our farmers, continued food production, and I think that holds us in a good stead in terms of dealing with the rest of the economic impact.
Thank you so much, and we will go back to our talk later. Anh Quân ơi, cái kêu nó lại bị tắt rồi. Hmm. Do you want to drink some more water?
Have it. So what do you do in this gap?
Huh?
How do you, this gap is for the commercials.
Oh, we divide the talk show into two parts. Yeah. And one part for the practical situation of COVID-19,
Okay,
and
okay.
the second part is the efforts of Indian government.
Okay.
Yes. Now I will move to the second part. Ambassador, can you tell us what actions and plans that the Indian government has prepared in order to deal with the crisis?
In terms of the steps that we have taken, the government of India has taken to deal with this unprecedented crisis, actually it spans across all three fronts. You have steps taken to save lives, which is the healthcare part of the steps taken. Then the second part is to deal with the impact it has made on the poorer sections of society, so livelihood issues. And the third, of course, is the economic revival to get the economy out of the shadows of the pandemic.
Yes.
In terms of healthcare, we took some very early and decisive steps, such as entry restrictions right from January, when the first cases had started appearing in the world. We also moved into a unprecedented, more than 2 months long lockdown during the month of May and June, April and May. And that was basically to ensure that we break the chain of the pandemic in its early stages. And I must tell you that those more than 2 month long lockdown actually helped us prepare for the large wave of pandemic that later on came. We were better prepared because of those 2 months of preparation. In terms of healthcare infrastructure, there's been a massive ramping up. World's largest COVID hospital today is in India. It's a 10,000 bed hospital built specifically to treat COVID in Delhi. We have today more than 70,000 COVID dedicated facilities with almost 2 million isolation beds. Another thing that we did, which is holding us in good stead, is that we significantly scaled up the production of medical supplies. There was a situation that we were not making any of these critical supplies such as personnel protection equipment, PPE kits, even N95 masks in India when the crisis started in January. Today we are not only manufacturing them in large numbers, we are even exporting those products. So today we are making almost 500,000 PPE kits every day. We are probably the second largest PPE manufacturer today in the world. Similarly, N95 masks, we are making about 300,000 masks per day. So there has been a significant scaling up of those efforts. As I mentioned to you about our testing capabilities, we are probably one of the most tested country in the world in terms of the COVID-19 tests that are being carried out on the general population. We also have, because of the fact that we have such a large number of people who have recovered from COVID, 5.2 million as of today, as I said, they provide an excellent foundation for us to have an idea of how to deal with the virus. Today we know about the virus much better than we knew in January or February when the crisis broke out. They also provide a huge clinical database experience for us to move forward in directions such as vaccine manufacturing, finding other ways of treatment, using plasma therapy, and all sorts of other medical therapeutic ways in which we are trying today to deal with the pandemic. In terms of the livelihood issues, I would say that we have taken some, again, very unprecedented steps to ensure that the pandemic's impact on the vulnerable sections of the society, on the poor, on the migrant workers who were badly hit, is minimized. And to give you an example, today we are running a world's largest food security program to help these sections of society deal with the pandemic. We have US $20 billion worth of food security program, which is helping almost 800 million people, giving them free food. This is twice the population of EU and 2.5 times the population of US. Similarly, in terms of support, financial support to the poor people, we have launched a $25 billion Prime Minister's Poor Welfare Program, which is, again, to give you an idea, extending almost $6 billion of financial support directly transferred to the bank accounts of 300 million farmers, and about $12 billion of new loans, very, very soft loans being extended to a farming community. So these are the kind of steps that we have taken to deal with the livelihood issues. Coming to the economic revival, the third pillar of our steps that we have taken, again, I would say we have taken some really transformative steps. We are taking those steps as we speak. We believe that this crisis can be turned into an opportunity, and the India that would emerge after COVID-19 would be stronger economically than it was before. It is with this vision that Prime Minister Modi has talked about the idea of human-centered globalization. The COVID pandemic taught us one thing, that however you may be developed economically, until you take care of the health of individual human being, none of your economic growth and development actually matters. So you have to make the economic growth, economic prosperity center around the human well-being. So the whole idea of human-centered globalization is actually to ensure that economic revival is done through care and compassion for human beings, which was somehow lost in this race for economic growth. Prime Minister Modi has also envisioned in India what we call Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's an Hindi word which actually means self-reliant India, to essentially make India self-sustaining, resilient. This is not to mean that we will isolate India from the rest of the world. Quite contrary, actually, we would want India to integrate better into the global value chains, but by building capacities at home. So the focus is on building capacities at home so that we can connect better with the rest of the world. In terms of this idea of vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India, we are largely going to base it on 5 pillars: economy, infrastructure, technology, demography, because we have such a large population, such large consumption demand, and demand, of course, flowing from that demography. So these 5 pillars is what we are using to ensure that the idea of a self-reliant India comes into fruition. We have also taken steps to ensure that, and we have this vision, Prime Minister has this vision that India's revival must lead the global economic revival post COVID-19. And if you look at India's size, India's capacities, and our aspiration, I think India's economic revival will be a major factor in global economic growth revival after the COVID-19. In fact, at the video address that Prime Minister made to the UN General Assembly last week, he mentioned that the Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India, will be a force multiplier for global economy. So we are taking a number of transformative steps. To give you again an idea, we have the government has announced a stimulus package of $300 billion, which is almost 10% of our GDP. The government has taken some extremely transformative steps in reforming agriculture, because India is still an agriculture dependent country, that revival and growth of agriculture is an important component if you have to really place India at the forefront of global economy. So some very, very significant steps have been taken to ensure that farmers have access to the whole countrywide market. They have more freedom to choose their markets where they can sell products. They are able to modernize their farming practices. They can also have the freedom to do contact farming, so that they can actually, from farm to industry, they can connect more efficiently. So a number of steps like that have been taken in the last 2 months. We are also focusing on a major boost to our micro, medium, and small-scale industries, because they are again a mainstay of our economy. We want them to grow. We would like to invite our partners and countries across the world to join in this revival of Indian economic growth. We are doing a lot of measures. We are taking a lot of measures to ensure ease of doing business. And as Prime Minister said, that India welcomes the world business with openness, with options and opportunity, the 3 O's. And we are very confident that India that emerges post-COVID-19 will be a much stronger India than it was before the COVID-19.
We know that globally many countries have been trying to fight out and test the COVID-19 preventive vaccines. So could you share with us about this preventive vaccine in India?
Well, India is actually known as the pharmacy of the world. We are world's largest vaccine manufacturer. Almost more than 60% of the global vaccines are produced in India. Okay. Given our vaccine manufacturing capabilities, it is only natural that India will be at the forefront of this vaccine.
The first beneficiaries.
Yes, not the beneficiary, but also the contributor for the world in terms of providing the vaccine to the world, either by developing on its own or by manufacturing for those who are developing the vaccine. So in India itself, we have 2 vaccines which are being developed in India and are at an advanced stage of human trial. And the feedbacks are encouraging. Our vaccine manufacturers, some of which are, as I told you, world's largest vaccine manufacturers, have also got a contract for producing vaccines from developers outside the country. So for example, vaccine developers in UK are tying up with Indian vaccine manufacturers for production. So Prime Minister, again, in that video address that he made to the UN General Assembly, he assured the global community that India will help the entire humanity by developing and manufacturing vaccine to deal with the COVID-19. So this is a very important area for us, where we are actually at the forefront of global endeavors.
Mhm. As an Indian ambassador to Vietnam, could you tell us how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the bilateral economic and trade ties between Vietnam and India?
Well, because of the COVID-related disruptions, the trade and economic ties have been hampered. If you look at the trading figures, the rough assessment is about, the impact is about 15 to 20% decline in trade. But again, I would say that we are coming out of the shadows, and we see signs of revival in our trade and economic activities. But I think despite these disruptions, there is an opportunity in this crisis. And why I say so is because COVID-19 has forced us to rethink the way we do business as usual, the way we had engaged before COVID-19. And here the opportunities for new partnership lies. For example, both India and Vietnam have suffered supply chain disruptions, demand disruptions. So can we look at each other and explore new partnerships, new supply chain linkages, which are located in each other's country? I think this is the broad framework from which our businesses have started re-engaging with each other. We have done a number of video conferences between business chambers, businesses of India and Vietnam. And this is the broad perspective from which we are encouraging them to re-look at our economic engagement. We are also talking about a resilient supply chain, to ensure that such crises in future do not again disrupt the trading activities and the trading engagement. How we can build supply chains and trade linkages based on trust and not just economic expediency. I think those are some of the ideas that are now coming up to the fore as we are trying to bring back and probably scale up our economic engagement in post-COVID-19 situation.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, how have the both sides helped each other in dealing with this?
We have been in constant touch with each other. I think right at the highest level. Our prime ministers spoke on phone in April and exchanged views on how the two countries were dealing with the pandemic situation. Most recently, last month in August, late August, we had the foreign ministers of the two countries holding video conference for their annual political dialogue, and which provided again an opportunity for us to discuss how we are managing, how we are looking at future cooperation with each other post COVID-19. These have helped. These are always very important inputs as we ourselves devise ways to deal with the COVID situation domestically, to hear from partners how they are doing, how they are managing. So these consultations have been very, very useful. In addition, I think we have had a very stable partnership in the medical field also. India is, as I told you, it's world's pharmacy, and we have during the COVID pandemic, reached out to more than 150 countries, providing them medicines, supportive medicines. Of course, we do not have a medicine for COVID, but to manage the COVID symptoms, we have provided medicines to more than 150 countries. And our supplies, medical supplies to Vietnam have remained stable. Similarly, we are very thankful to the Vietnamese government for providing masks to Indian Red Cross Society, which have been really seen as a very, very positive and friendly gesture on the part of Vietnam to help India. In addition, I think we have also remained engaged to share best practices. So, for example, our military medical departments have held video conferences on how the militaries are dealing with the pandemic situation, what kind of medical breakthroughs they are making. In addition, there are online capacity building programs that India has conducted where Vietnam has been invited to participate. For example, 2 months ago, we had this online capacity building course on policing during pandemic, in which the Ministry of Public Security of Vietnam participated. So there are many ways in which we are engaging. Despite the disruptions in travel that it has caused, we have made the best use of technology to remain connected through video links. We have also, in some ways, I would say, inspired each other's regional response to deal with COVID-19 situation. You know, way back in March, India organized a video meeting of leaders from South Asia, where we came up with ideas like having a COVID-19 emergency fund, preparing countries collectively in our region to deal with emergency medical situations, also sharing best practices among experts. Later on, Vietnam also had taken lead in getting the ASEAN countries to have a regional response to COVID-19. And many of these elements also were initiated by Vietnam's leadership in ASEAN region. So we are very happy that even in shaping regional response, we have maintained that communication and similarity of position with each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for your informative sharing in this program today. And once again, thank you for coming to VITV studio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Wow.
So it was, should we continue sitting?
No.
It's
done. Okay. Yeah, you have done a very great job. kệ nó đi. Các MC đây còn gì nữa? MC là bách xanh còn gì? À ừ, đúng. Thế thì lần sau những cái phần thôi. Ừ, bình thường là một mạch thì thôi. Nào đến cái phần này. Trong bối cảnh. Pranay Verma. Ông ấy nhìn trông cứ bé bé dễ thương nhỉ? Trông bé nhỏ. Thưa quý vị, trong bối cảnh dịch bệnh diễn biến phức tạp, chính phủ Ấn Độ cũng như chính quyền các bang đã có những biện pháp gì để đối phó với tình hình? Mời quý vị đến với phần tổng hợp sau. Quên, không để chân. Thông qua những chia sẻ cụ thể của Đại sứ Ấn Độ tại Việt Nam, hy vọng rằng quý vị đã hình dung được bức tranh toàn cảnh về đại dịch COVID-19 tại Ấn Độ. Đến đây, chương trình Thế giới sự kiện tuần này xin được khép lại. Cảm ơn sự quan tâm theo dõi của quý vị. Quý khán giả có thể xem trực tuyến hoặc xem lại chương trình trên website vitv.vn hoặc cập nhật thông tin qua Facebook của kênh truyền hình Kinh tế Tài chính VITV. Xin kính chào tạm biệt và hẹn gặp lại. Có bị lẫn tiếng không vậy? Dẫn lại đi, vừa bị lẫn tiếng điện thoại. Thông qua những chia sẻ cụ thể của Đại sứ Ấn Độ tại Việt Nam, hy vọng rằng quý vị đã hình dung được một bức tranh toàn cảnh về đại dịch COVID-19 tại Ấn Độ. Đến đây, chương trình Thế giới sự kiện tuần này xin được khép lại. Cảm ơn sự quan tâm theo dõi của quý vị. Quý khán giả có thể xem trực tuyến hoặc xem lại chương trình trên website vitv.vn hoặc cập nhật thông tin qua Facebook của kênh truyền hình Kinh tế Tài chính VITV. Xin kính chào tạm biệt và hẹn gặp lại. Hiếu ơi! Thì ra kia ngồi chứ.